Hi everybody, my name's Leslie Benson. I am the founder of the Plaid Poodle. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I want to thank you so much for subscribing to my 12 Days of Christmas subscription service, event, whatever you want to call it. I hope you enjoyed the day one project, and if you signed up after that email went out, there will be a link in today's email that will take you to the fun shadow box Christmas ornament project from day one. So let's get started with our project on day two. Day two, 12 Days of Christmas. This is the little Bendy card that we're going to make. I just think it is adorable. The card is made in such a way or fashioned in such a way that you can fold it flat and mail it in an envelope. And we're using the Freezin Friends bundle by Stampin' Up! To create the card. The stamp set has all the fun little creatures having fun out in the snow, and then there is a coordinating die set that comes with it. The dies included in the set will cut out most of the creatures, I believe all of the creatures actually. It has some snowballs, a heart, some stars, and some Christmas trees. And then it's also got this fun slope, and when I saw this set, I knew we had to make a bendy card with it. Okay, to start out with step one, and it does help if you refer to your instruction sheet, you're going to need a piece of 5.5 by 4 1/4 inch Whisper White thick cardstock. It's the thicker, heavier cardstock. Then you're going to want to cut out one snowbank using a die from the Freezin Friends dies. We're going to adhere that to the back of the card, to the card base. Then you're going to cut another snowbank, from a piece of 5.5 by 3 3/4. And I just eyeballed where I was going to cut the snowbank to make sure that I could see the back and the front of each. There was no science or math involved. And then one final snowbank out of vellum, and I cut this snowbank out of a 5.5 by 1 1/4 inch piece of vellum. The first step is to create that fun sky background. And to do that, I'm using 2 colors of ink. I'm going to get a scrap paper out of here because we are going to do some blending. I'm using Seaside Spray and Magenta Madness. And I'm using a blending brush, but you could also use a Stampin' sponge, some kind of sponge to blend your inks. And I always start off of the card, and I'm creating a light layer of the Magenta Madness, and then I'm going to take the Moonlight, I always forget the name. This is actually Seaside Spray. There is a Misty Moonlight that's very similar to this blue, but it's a little darker. This is a pretty pale blue. I just thought these colors really created a fun winter skyline. They're non-traditional Christmas colors, and in fact, this doesn't really have to be a Christmas card. You could certainly make it a Christmas card. It's just a fun winter scene. And I have 4 little grandchildren who I know would love to receive this fun card in the mail. I'm going to add a little bit more of the Seaside Spray in the middle. So we've just kind of created a little blending of the 2 colors, and I'm going to be pulling those colors out when I do my coloring on the stamped images. The next thing we're going to do is take that largest snowbank and we're going to adhere it to our card base. And I'm just lining it up at the bottom. And then we're going to add a sentiment right here so that when the recipient opens the card, when they receive it in the mail, they can open the card and they're sending warmth your way. So we're going to stamp that on the card base. And then I'm going to heat emboss with silver Stampin' Emboss powder the sentiment, "'Tis the season to be freezin'." 'Tis the season to be freezin'. So let's do our stamping right now. To do my sentiment, I'm using my Stamparatus. I always like to use my Stamparatus when I'm using red rubber cling stamps because, oh, my little, I'll have to glue him back on. Because I can make sure that everything is straight and where it needs to be. And I need to line this up a little higher. There we go. So I am going to take the Magenta Madness and add that sentiment right there. And while I have that open, we're going to go ahead and add our silver emboss powder to the vellum snowbank. Okay, so I'm going to take a little Versamark ink and stamp that onto the vellum. Then I'll grab our scrap paper and I'm going to sprinkle a little silver Stampin' Emboss powder onto that. It's back before it gets spilled somewhere. And then I'm going to heat this with the heat tool. I apologize for the noise. There you can see that ink melted right on there. Now the next thing we're going to do, we've got these two snowbanks. If you pay attention to your instructions, this is snowbank 2 and this is the vellum snowbank. This is snowbank 1. Like I said, it might be easier for you if you follow along on the written instructions. What I'm going to do with my Stampin' Trimmer is I'm going to just score. I'm not going to cut 1/4 inch from the edge of snowbank number 2. I made a little score mark. That's why I love my Stampin' Trimmer, because I can cut and score all at once and I don't have to change blades out. Then I'm going to do the same thing on this vellum piece, 1/4 of an inch. We're going to score it. I'm a little gentler with the vellum because I don't want to cut through. And you might want to take your bone folder and really crease those score lines. These are creating your flaps that you're going to adhere the snowbanks to. We're going to add a little adhesive in a minute to that. And then we'll add a little adhesive to that flap, and it will go over here. Okay? But first we need to create the tabs. There are tabs on each. Here's a little tab, or I'm sorry, a little slit for the tabs. And then there's one on the card base. So we put this tab on the one in the card base, and then there's a little tab over here that we put the vellum in. Okay? So what we're going to do is grab our ruler, and on this snowbank number 2, what I'm calling snowbank number 2, we are going to use our ruler, and 2 inches from the end, we're going to start right here from the end, 2 inches is where we want to put our little slit. So I'm going to take a pencil, and I'm going to just put my vellum right here just to make a little, give it me a little indication of where I want that to be. And I didn't mention, first of all, we want to make the tab that's going to go into the slit we're going to cut. So I am going to just use my ruler, or I could just use my graph paper here and just draw a faint line with my pencil. So I have that 1/4 of an inch there, and then I'm going to take my paper snips, and I'm just going to cut up to that pencil mark on a diagonal, and then cut off these end pieces, and it's going to create a little tab. Okay, and then I can take my eraser and erase the pencil marks. So when we go ahead and cut our slit here, you can see that it's going to be the same width, so our tab will fit in there. You want to start out a little small because you can always make the slit bigger, but you can't make it smaller. Now we're going to do the same thing on this end. We're going to draw 1/4 of an inch with our pencil, and I'm just lightly drawing that in, and then just like before, I'm going to create a little tab. Now I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, this snowbank in particular, I cut from Thick Whisper White. It's a heavier cardstock, but it can still be stamped on very nicely. There's actually a coating on here that accepts ink very nicely, but it's just heavier than the normal Whisper White that we cut this snowbank from. I did that because this tab, I want it to be pretty sturdy because it's going to get a little bit of a workout when we're, you know, inserting it and uninserting it. And so I did use Thick Whisper White for that snowbank. And if you read the project sheet, you'll see that. Okay, now we have to put a little slit here at 1 3/4 inches, from the end of this card base. So I'm just taking my ruler. I'm going to put my tab there, so I'm going to know just about how big I want my, so I'm going to just put a little mark there and draw a little pencil mark, just like we did on this snowbank. I hope I haven't lost you, and I hope I'm not confusing you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Now I'm going to grab a little board that I use when I'm using my craft knife, because we're going to cut these slits, and I'm just going to use a sharp craft knife and my ruler. And just cut along that slit we just drew, or the pencil line we just drew. Make sure it goes all the way through. Then I'm going to test it. I have a feeling I'm going to have to make it a little bigger. Okay, I think that's going to do it. There we go. So you can see how that's going to fit in there. And I'm going to take my eraser and get the pencil marks off of there. Okay, then we're going to do the same thing on this little snow bank on the pencil mark that we put here. And I'm just using the ruler as a little guide. And then I'm going to test it to make sure my little vellum tab goes in there. And it does. So we're done with the ruler, and we're done. This was the hardest part about this card, was just getting all of that situated, and it was the hardest part to explain. So that's why I included the video for today's project. Okay, now we can go ahead and apply adhesive to our tabs. I'm using some multi-purpose liquid glue. It's a really strong adhesive once it dries. If you have some tear and tape, you want to use probably a strong adhesive. Okay, then we're going to do the same thing with our little vellum tab that we created before. We're almost done with the mechanics of this, and we'll move to the fun part in just a second. I'm going to let that glue kind of take a hold. And if I could find my little penguin while we wait for the glue to dry, we will glue him back on his snowboard. Got a little carried away. Here we go. Okay, I think that's probably long enough. Now, it helps if you kind of take your fingers or your hand, or you could take a bone folder and just gently curve this. It just helps kind of train the paper, break down the fibers a little bit, so that you end up with a round snowbank. And the same thing with the vellum. Just kind of curl it. It's a little stiffer than paper, so. And then we've got our tab over here for the vellum. There we go. Now that is our card base. We're all done with the card base. Isn't that adorable? We're going to do our stamping and add our little fun friends to the front. So what I have done, again, I'm using my Stamparatus, and I've put all my stamped images on here so that we can stamp it all in one mighty swoop. And I've taken a piece of, I believe this is 5.5 by 3 1/4. Let me look. 3.5. 5.5 by 3.5 is big enough for you to stamp all the images on. If you don't have a stamp placement tool, I would highly recommend the Stamparatus. I love my Stamparatus. I use it all the time. You can see we're going to stamp 6 images all in one mighty impression. I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black ink because I'm going to use some Stampin' Blend markers to color in my images, and they are alcohol markers. So the Memento ink will work well with that. It won't smear or dissolve or whatever. And through the magic of television, I went ahead. Let me show you that guide again. I can find it. Oh, here it is. So here are the dies that come with the Freezin Friends. So I have cut out the little penguin. I've colored them all, and if you look on the project sheet, there is a list of products that I use, so you will see the colors I use. But I pulled a lot of the background colors that we use, the Magenta Madness and the Seaside Spray. I pulled a lot of that. Our little penguin has a Seaside Spray hat and scarf. I used, I'll think of it in a minute, Shaded Spruce. The little penguin's snowboard is also the Seaside Spray. And then I pulled the pink in on the little bunny rabbit with her scarf. That is the Magenta Madness. And then I also used some Seaside Spray markers to color in the little snowballs, and then I die cut them all out with the coordinating dies, and we can put those on our card. I took the big tree, the big Christmas tree or winter tree. It's not necessarily a Christmas tree, it's a pine tree. And I glued it up here at the top of the snow hill, the snowbank. And then I took some Stampin' Dimensionals and I added the smaller tree in front of it. So I popped it up a little bit. Makes it look like it's a little further away. Then I took my rabbit, my little bunny rabbit. I did use some Flirty Flamingo to color her ears and her tummy. And she's flying down the snowbank, and so I used some Stampin' Dimensionals on her as well, just to give her a little dimension. I went snow skiing one time in my life. It was the hardest workout I have ever had in my life. If you snow ski, you are in shape. Okay, and then I took the little snowboard for the penguin and I put it on the front snowbank, and I'm using dimensionals for it as well. And again, I used a dimensional for the little pile of snowballs. They're getting ready to have a snowball fight here in a bit. And I just placed them down here in this little open spot. I felt like it needed something, so I went ahead and used those. And then for the little penguin snowboarder, I just put a little liquid glue on his little feet and glued him to his snowboard. And that is the card. I think these Bendy cards are the cutest thing, and I am so happy to share it with you, and I hope that it inspired you to make your own Bendy card. If I can help you or answer any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. My email is leslie@theplaidpoodle.com. This is day 2 of 12 Days of Christmas, so look for another email next week with day number 3. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.